My name is Shawn Stevens. It's my American given name. My Native American name is Standing Eagle. Can you all hear me? I can yell. I got a big voice too. I am from the Stockbridge Muncie Band of Mohicans. We currently live in Wisconsin at this time. Historically, these lands that go all the way up to the bottom of Lake Champlain, down to Manhattan Island and east and west of the Hudson River, which is called the Hudson River today. Our traditional way of calling is the Mahikanatuk River, which is the Mohican River. Give you a real quick language lesson. The word Mohican, a lot of people will say Mohican, but it's traditionally Mahican. And what that means, it doesn't mean a person. It's actually a thing. And Mahi, which means great, and Hikin, which means a body of water that flows in different directions. It's not a river, it's not a lake, it's not a pond. It's a body in movement that goes in many directions. And those of you who know, the Hudson River is a tidal river. When the tide comes in, it flows upstream. And when the tide flows out, it goes downstream. And so it's constantly in different motions. I hate to take this to a dark spot, but through a lot of the wars, the disease which really eradicated 90% of my people within 10 years, the wars, the disease, and the land theft had taken from our people and scattered our people in many directions. And our land base kept shrinking and shrinking until our last little bit of land was there in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. And it wasn't enough, that we had just a little bit of land. And right after the Revolutionary War, which my people fought in, we fought in every war, with our brother settlers and such who came here to be a part of. We fought in all the wars. And by the end of this war, our women far outnumbered the men. We had very few men left. And by the time the end of the war came and we were fighting for the colonists, we were basically patted on the back and told to move, pretty much. And we moved over to Oneida County, New York by invitation by the Oneidas, and which started our own journey of tears. And the history is way too far for me because I've got about 5 minutes, he says. But we've endured. We're a people who've endured and survived. And unfortunately, through a book from James Fenimore Cooper in 1960s and the 1990s movies, Last of the Mohicans, a lot of people thought that our people were gone. And we're not gone. We've been here. We have endured. And we joined up with some of the Muncie people who are also being pushed westward. We found our little bit of land by the Menominee people in Wisconsin who gave us a little part of their land. And we've been there since 1859. And it seemed that for so much with the government who was really trying hard to extinguish Native Americans. They wanted to push them basically over to the West Coast beyond the lands of the states. And also when they found out when that wasn't going to work, they tried to destroy our culture and our ways. It went far beyond the wars. It went to the late 1890s and early 1900s up to the 1950s, where they came into our homes and they took all of our children and sent them off to mission schools and to a place where you could not speak your language, you could not wear your traditional clothes, you could not do anything but conform to a new way. And these children never got to come home until they were 18. And when they did come home, they were a different people from the people we sent out there. And it was all done to make us implode from the inside out. And I think one of the sayings from the people who brought this law about was to save the man, kill the Indian, what was called. And we've endured through that, even through to the 1960s when many Native American women were being sterilized without their knowledge by the government by having them sign papers that they had no idea what they were signing. We've endured through that. It wasn't until 1978, I believe, with the Native American Religious Freedom Act, that we were actually allowed to practice our own religions. We were not allowed to. That's even in my time, that we were not allowed to practice our own religions. And through all of this trauma, it comes intergenerational trauma, goes down through the generations, and many of our people are still affected by that. And it looked like things were not happening, things were not going right. And Geez, I wish I had like 4 hours to tell you everything. Actually, it would take more, but that would be the short version. But in the early 1990s, a miracle happened. A miracle was born. That's the name of the white buffalo calf that was born in the early 1990s. Actually, born in the same town I was born in, Janesville, Wisconsin. And things began to change slowly, very slowly. One of my mentors had told me when I was younger, he had told me that he remembers a time where we had to hide everything. We had to hide our ceremonies. We had to hide everything that we could not speak in public, our languages. A lot of our elders still have a problem speaking their language in public because they were forced for so long that they could not do this. But however, things started changing a little bit and a little bit. And he told me that when he was younger, that his mentors told him that the people did not want us to be this way. They did not want us to be cultural. They did not want us to be spiritual. They did not want us to be indigenous. They did not want that. And they tried to eradicate everything that they could. But he said one day the people will come back. Those people will come back and they'll ask you about those things. They'll ask you about your indigenous ways because they have also a want of finding out their own indigenous culture and heritage. That's why when you hear that drum, and it affects everybody, that drum's a heartbeat of Mother Earth. We've all had drums in our indigenous past. And my duty, what I've been doing for so long, is to remind other people that we all come from indigenous roots, and that we're all connected. We're all connected to this earth, our Mother Earth. Even with our genetics, we all share genetics, not only with the people, we share it with the plants, with the animals, with the earth, everything. If we all stood around and we just said, okay, where's your ancestral homelands? And we'd all point in a direction, it'd be many different directions. But if we got on a spaceship and went a million miles away and decided to point where our homelands, we'd all be pointing at the same place, and that this is Mother Earth. And so part of my duty is to remind other people we're all connected. We're all family. We're all brothers and sisters. We have to remember our indigenous roots, and that's why our job as indigenous people is to remind other people, because the earth needs it. The earth needs to be saved. Because when we become so disconnected from the earth and our indigenous connections, that's when a lot of terrible things, the pollution, global change is coming, because a lot of our governments don't recognize what's going on in respecting our Mother Earth. If we don't take care of her, we're going to be gone. There was an old comedian once said, it's like, the earth will be fine, but we might not be. We might not be here. So to further our people, to further our existence, we have to understand that we are all related. We are all indigenous to this Mother Earth, and we all have a duty to respect her and to take care of her, and she will take care of the next 7 and so on generations. And so that's my duty that I always felt with my path, to take on what my mentor had told me and to go forward and share this with all the other people who would listen. And I thank you all for coming and listening to these words. Because we can't do it, natives, as indigenous people who are considered indigenous people, we can't do it all on our own. We need your help. We need you to also remember your indigenous path, your past, your indigenous connection. We're all part of this earth. We are earth. We're just a little piece of it. That's all.